All right, first video with my new computer. It's not a test. I'll read a little bit of the Constitution, so I got my copy out. Everybody should have a copy, and we all need to read it. And just honestly, I'm reading it, and it's surprising me how long it's been since I read it, because it's like, gosh, how did I not even notice it? It's been forever. And it's amazing me completely how the government is getting away with so much that is in direct confrontation with what it plainly says. It's so simple. So let's read the very first article, very first article, okay, of the Constitution. After it gets through talking about, you're going to have a Congress and a presidency and a judiciary and all that. Right after that, you get into Section 8. And it says very plainly, the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. The Congress shall have power, and then it goes down, to coin money. Hey, Earl. To coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. The Constitution plainly says that it is the power of the Congress to coin money. Now, what blaring contradiction to this constitutional clause, Section 8 of the very first article of the Constitution, is staring us directly in the face. Our money is not being created by the Congress of the United States. Our money, if you want to call it money, I don't think that is actually a proper term for what is going on. But what we call money is being created by a group of private banks known as the Federal Reserve. Both Abraham Lincoln and Kennedy attempted to create their own money through the Treasury, and both were assassinated. The first act, I understand, of President Johnson, isn't it interesting that both assassinated presidents, well, I mean, I know there was a couple more, but the main ones that we all know about that were 100 years apart, both had a President Johnson right after him. What are the chances of that? But anyway, I think his very first act was to rescind Kennedy's creation of money from the Treasury and restore it directly to the Federal Reserve. Because Kennedy had created, what was it, a silver coin or something straight from the Treasury. It is the power of the Congress, it says, I'm still reading Section 8, to regulate commerce. This is the commerce clause that you hear so much about in the media, with foreign nations and among the several states. Now, I suppose this is the clause that they use to say that we can have a Department of Education. But I have to ask you a question. How does the federal government have the power to regulate a school inside of a district or inside of a state when that, or to provide funding for any sort of school district that is within the borders of a state? How does it have power to do that when the Commerce Clause literally says to regulate commerce among the several states? Does your school district work with other states somehow? No. It's completely contained within that state. Furthermore, the Constitution says that the federal government has no power outside of what is specifically enumerated inside, the 1964 minimum wage, 5 silver quarters. Okay. Or were those the silver quarters that Kennedy created? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, no value 1515. That's interesting. So the federal government does not have the power to do anything that is not specifically enumerated in the Constitution. So if it doesn't say you can do it, they don't have the power to do it, period. This goes for a Department of Education, a Department of Energy. It doesn't have the power to create a, what do you call the economic, or not economic, I'm sorry, the pollution regulation branch or whatever, the Department of, I can't think of the name of it right now. They do not have the power to do that. They do not have the power to create all these organizations and regulatory branches of the executive. They can't do this because it's not specifically enumerated in the Constitution. Now, could they, if there was a dispute between states, could they intervene? Yes. They could intervene if there was a dispute between the states. If there was commerce between the states. Is pollution commerce? No. Pollution is not commerce between the states. The states have the only ability to create laws to regulate pollution, not the federal government. The states have 100% of the power to create anything to do with schools and to fund schools. The federal government does not. Technically, your state, if it wanted to, has the power, if it's within the powers of its own constitution, of its own state constitution, to levy a tithe and create a state church. The federal government cannot do that because only the federal government is bound by the Constitution, not your state government. Okay? If your state government wanted to create a state church, it can do that. Now, it probably has something in its own constitution limiting that, but it doesn't have to. And let's see here. So what was the next thing I was going to read here? And here's this. Look at this. No money shall be drawn from the treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. When is the last time the Federal Reserve gave you an expenditure account of all money that it spent? Clear violation of the Constitution. Now get this, Section 10. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin, a tender in payments of debts. Your state has the power to create its own money of gold and silver. As long as it's gold and silver, they have the power to do that. When's the last time your state ever did it, though? It's ridiculous what they're getting away with. And I thought for a little bit of time, I was talking to you that maybe, do we need to start a war? Do we need to protest the Federal Reserve? And the answer, he says, no, we don't protest. It doesn't do any good to protest the Federal Reserve because you're doing it out of order. You fix your Congress, you get different president. The president can literally sign the Federal Reserve out of existence with an executive order and restore it to the Treasury. And that's what Kennedy was going to do. And they killed him for it. All it takes is just a swipe of the pen. So what does America need to do? It needs to have a plan where we, as the people, to become wise enough to elect a wise president and a wise vice president who are committed to this concept of eliminating the Federal Reserve and a Congress that will back them. So that when and if or when they are successful in eliminating this president, the next guy picks up the issue. It needs to be a very important issue while they are running and it needs to be held, they need to be held accountable to make this happen. It won't do any good just to go and invade the Federal Reserve, or to create a militia or whatever. What we need to do is declare what I just did. Just take your Constitution and read it, okay? And get people to understand it. And don't let it go. And find public officials who are committed to making this happen. Well, that's it for today. So try it again some other time.